Welcome back, everyone, to Ask Brojo Anything, Brojo being me and Mike. We've actually got a few different things today. So we're going into anxiety at work and having a bullying critical parent, dealing with those things. Very common issues. So we'll dive straight into it. First question today, how to overcome anxiety at work. There are always numerous things to do all at once. My anxiety flares up and my brain says, I'm out of here. Then things don't get done, deadlines get missed, more tasks pile up and the anxiety increases. It's hurting my career. Anything that can help? All right. You want to jump into that, Mike?
Yeah, I'll love to. I'm the king of creating anxious situations in the workplace. There's a kind of personality, I'd say, that tends to push ourselves to the absolute maximum. We know that we're capable of a lot, but when it comes to our ability to be emotionally resilient in high stress situations, we tend to exceed our own abilities. And my whole life, I have done this. Now, any of you who've been in this experience, you know that you do grow to an extent, but it is possible to burn out, to absolutely burn out, to crash and burn, to see major projects fail, to get fired, to create huge unnecessary workplace conflicts, or to overlook critical issues or relationships that end up just blowing up in your face at some point. None of us need any of that to happen. I think what it really comes down to is understanding where your anxiety level is at and coming in just under that on a regular basis. For me, there are a lot of specific things that I would do that would create anxiety. Number one, I didn't know how to say no. I'd always accept any project anyone threw at me, whether or not it was reasonable, whether or not I had time, whether or not it conflicted with other things I needed to do. I felt somehow that was my job as an employee, was to do everything I was asked of. That is not the case. Your job is to benefit the company. And if you are accepting projects and directives from 3 different bosses, you cannot help your company in a meaningful way. And it's up to you to set frame there. Dan, I actually suggest we kind of ping pong back and forth on some of our top tips. I think that's my number one, is learn to say no, know your limits, be prepared to have basic confrontations. It doesn't need to be a big deal. You can basically say, hey, can you please check with my boss on this? That's Bob. Bob is my boss. And make sure that he's, where he wants this in the priority with all the other things that he has me doing. That's one of the best things that you can do is identify your boss and direct everyone else to them rather than just taking on new work.
Yeah, I'd springboard off that to kind of, you have to identify why it's happening. And there's usually 2 reasons. There's the reason that it started happening, and then the second reason, which is the side effects of the anxiety. So the anxiety creates its own anxiety. Like you delay on work, you end up doubling your workload. Now that makes you anxious. So it's important to sort of separate, okay, my reaction to anxiety, the running away kind of effect is actually what creates it in the, tomorrow's anxiety. But what was the initial cause? And when we look at, say, a concept of not saying no, I think we really come to the umbrella of people pleasing. 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, if you're anxious at work because of workload, it's a people pleasing problem. It's the other 10%, it's you're in the wrong job and your brain's just reacting to that. It hates being there and it just wants you to leave, and it's giving you a very good sign. And often there's overlap, it's both. But not saying no is part of a greater, I guess, umbrella of issues that come from wanting to please everybody, wanting to be seen as the good employee, wanting to be seen as having good reputation or being of value. And the tragic irony is that your reaction to those needy urges usually leads you to engage in behavior that's going to make you less in those areas. You're actually kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If you don't say no to anyone, you're not going to do anything to a high level of excellence. You should be saying no to most of the stuff that comes your way. So the few things that you say yes to, you smash them out of the park. And that's how you get a good reputation. But a good reputation doesn't come from saying yes to everybody or trying to make people like you. So ultimately, I'd say there's two ways to deal with this. One is to learn how to deal with the in-the-moment anxiety, mindfulness, breathing, that kind of stuff, resetting your workload, practical exercises. But the bigger piece of work needs to be the people-pleasing. You deal with that, then you deal with this by default. That would be my first thought on it.
Yeah, I quite like that. In fact, expanding on both of these, the entire concept of setting boundaries is so central to managing your own anxiety. The tendency for me was I loved hitting it out of the park. I really loved being that guy that everybody wanted to stand up and cheer for, but that just meant I got more requests. I ended up with more bosses, more projects. Look what Mike can do. Let's give him more. How much can we load this guy down with? And at first I loved it until one day I didn't. It was really hard. It was really stressful. It was too much. And now I had created these expectations that I could deliver magic continually. And it was overwhelming. It was way more stress than I needed. So there were two boundaries I needed to set. One was with everyone else, really letting them know how much time I had, who manages my schedule and my priorities list, letting them even know what I was particularly good at and could help them with, and what I really wasn't that interested in or wasn't that skilled at, that they should probably find someone else to do. Just being very clear and honest and straight front up about that. I'm here to help you if you need me, but if you can find someone else, that would be a better choice. It'll happen faster and better. But I also needed to set boundaries with myself. I had to make certain that I wasn't pursuing that people-pleasing gratification, that sense of security, and that high serotonin you get out of the validation from other people on your victories. It's very addictive. And it's something that you really do have to watch out for, because ultimately you will crucify yourself on your own successes by creating this unrealistic, unsustainable work environment that you created, right? No one else did that. You invited it. And I didn't see that at the beginning, but it became clear quickly enough.
Yeah, that's a really key point. Just because you can handle it now doesn't mean it's sustainable. And you set a precedent, and people will adjust to your precedent. You know what? I think the thing that comes out of this most clearly, I can't think of anyone who's good at setting boundaries and has high anxiety. I can't think of anyone. And I can think of a lot of the opposite, almost to 100% degree. Somebody who's really bad at setting boundaries has a lot of anxiety. And I don't think that's some random coincidence or even a correlation. I think that's cause and effect. If you can manage, the boundaries start with yourself. It starts with you being honest with yourself about how you sacrifice your own well-being in order for these kind of needy outcomes of pleasing others and looking like the good person. And, it can start from a great place. Like, I want to do well in this job. And then it kind of bleeds into an unhealthy area. It's in the details, isn't it? Like, someone goes, "Oh, do you mind just grabbing that?" And you think, "Oh, that's nothing." And then you add another nothing and then another nothing. And now you got 16 nothings and you've got 4 hours worth of work added to your week. And suddenly it's a big deal. There's also in the micro details, like for me, I couldn't ignore emails. So the thing would ping, the little envelope symbol would pop up and I just had to read it, even though it took me away from my task, totally wrecked my flow. I wouldn't do anything about the email. I'm just checking to make sure nobody's upset with me. And then I'd come back to my work and have to slowly crank start to get back into it. One of the first things I did when I tried to work through my people pleasing was I only answered emails twice a day. And I actually had an autoresponder. I got this from Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week. I had an autoresponder that says I only answer emails from this time to this time. So please be patient and wait for a thing. And that added like 4 hours to my week, you know, just that. And I was like, wow, I can't believe how high impact that is. But overall, it's not about the little details. You know, this isn't going to change with time management tools and tips. It's a deeper core issue about people pleasing, most likely. That being said, I know the person who asked this question, and they're actually in the other category as well, or maybe more so. They were in a job they fucking hated. And their anxiety wasn't saying, oh no, you got to get all the work done. It was saying, I hate this job. Stop doing this stuff. This is very unsatisfying. There's no point to it. It's miserable. I hate being here. That's a different kind of anxiety. That's what I'd call quite helpful anxiety. It's anxiety saying what it's supposed to say. You're missing an important point here. I don't know. Would it be fair to say that a majority of people are not exactly in their dream job? That they're in something just for the money? Or they can be in a great job, but there's this chunk of it that they're forced to do, and it really doesn't align with their values, and they wouldn't ever choose to do it if they ran the business themselves. You know, the bureaucracy and meetings and fucking admin or whatever. There's bits of it they don't like. And so you can start asking yourself, like, how do I get those bits down to bare minimum? Can I give them to other people? Can I pay someone else to do them? Can I just stop doing them and nothing really goes wrong? And just create more enjoyment at work. Because I think enjoyment is absolute medicine for anxiety.
You should absolutely love going to work. And if you don't, there's probably something that you can improve there. You know, I was just reflecting, you know, even the most skilled and adept people I know, you take a professional juggler who's just insane, but you keep chucking more balls at him. Here's another one. Here's another one. At some point, his anxiety level is going to go way up. Our brains are very limited. We can only handle a few things. And if you don't respect your own limits, your own comfort level of what you're capable of what you're able to track at any given time, of how many items you can have on your to-do list or how many meetings you can have on your schedule, you are going to feel anxious and you're not going to be effective. And that brings up another key point here, I think, which is just like you, Dan, like having the autoresponder and focusing on how often you would allow yourself to be distracted. Distractions for me are one of my greatest sources of anxiety for two reasons. One, they always feel like an emergency, and they usually come in groups of 3 or 4. So they even distract you from each other. You're answering 3 emails at once, right? Meanwhile, I'm supposed to be doing something else. But because they're interruptive, they also create this huge stress around completing the original main thread of work that you're working on. And I do a very similar thing. I tend to group together the distracting tasks to minimize them. All of my email communications, all of my texting contact, all of my scheduling, meetup contacts, they all happen in the morning before I start my workday. Once I start writing, phone is off, email is closed for hours. And that is the only way I can really get a lot done. And I get a lot done in those few hours. It's amazing how much you can do once you subtract the distraction. But the best advantage out of practicing this way isn't just the efficiency, it's the enjoyment. It's the fact that I just don't feel stressed. I enjoy the working and I enjoy answering the emails. But when I try to do them at the same time, extremely high stress, zero enjoyment. All I can do is think of, I need to go out and get a coffee and stop work altogether, which is, of course, isn't going to solve anything as a long-term pattern.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of wrap it up with a final point, there's a absolute myth about multitasking. There is no such thing as multitasking. There's what looks like 2 tasks being done at the same time, but in terms of the way your brain works, there's only ever one thing being done at a time, and you flicker between the 2. Not only do you lose time in those flickers, so if you're answering emails while editing a video, your video, email, and that space in between is lost time, but you're also restarting the task hundreds, thousands of times. And the restart, it's like starting a car. It's kind of, it burns more fuel. It starts from cold to hot. And you can do it. You can notice yourself do it. Like, you get back to the email, you're like, what the fuck was this about again? There's this little like catch-up thing. Thousands of those a week equals hours. And not just hours, but the sense that you're not getting anything done. It feels really uncomfortable when you first try doing this, at least it did for me. But when you sit to one thing at a time, no matter how many emergencies seem to be thrown at you, and you say, I'll get to them when this thing is done, to have these pieces of work that you go chunk, done, it feels very, very satisfying, very productive, and it is very productive. You know, I can look at my workday as a whole group of tasks and be overwhelmed by it, but if I just start chunking through them one focus point at a time, I'm done by like 11:30. I'm like, I thought, fuck, that looked like 2 days worth of work. But it would have been if I tried to do it all at once. You know, but I do it just focused. It's amazing how much more efficient that is. You can't see it until you do it. And there's a kind of an inverted pyramid, which is the stuff you need to do most goes at the top and gets the most of your mental bandwidth. And then you taper down to the bottom. And you'll realize that, no, they're not all emergencies. In fact, almost none of them are. There are a few things that are urgent or important to your work being valuable. And it's less than 10% of your list of tasks, maybe less than 5. Usually it's just one thing. If you're a salesperson, it's getting on the phone. You know, if you're a coach, it's reaching out to someone and serving someone. If you're a builder, it's picking up a piece of wood and cutting it in half. Like, there are certain tasks that nothing else really matters compared to those. You can be behind on your emails or your billing or your admin, and nobody dies and nothing goes wrong unless it happens for a very long time. But you miss that big thing, or you leave it to the end of the day when you're all worn out and full of shit in your head, then your business is going to suffer. Then your work's going to suffer, and your reputation with it.
Yeah, one final thing to add there. So if any of you are really struggling with this kind of intense, stressful work environment or life, right? Can happen outside of work as well. Boundary setting, first thing to look at. Handling any people-pleasing tendencies that you have, very critical. But also look at a thing called the Eisenhower grid. You can find it online very easily. Essentially, it's an arrangement of all of your tasks on 2 axes: what's important and what is critical right now. And during World War II, Eisenhower used this grid to prioritize what he's paying attention to. It had 4 quadrants, and the only things he would do are things that were both urgent and important. Nothing else caught his attention. And it worked. And this is the essential lesson, I think, is if you're out of balance, most likely you're doing things you don't need to be doing. Other people could be doing them better. You've taken on too much. You're not able to say no. You're doing it for the wrong reasons, such as social validation and approval, rather than because this is good for your job, good for what you're delivering, good for your company. So step back, have a look, and look for those gaps, and you should be able to sort things out pretty smoothly, pretty quickly.
Well, I think we could keep going on, but we've covered the key points that we believe in, going to hit the mark there. And it's really mostly about self-respect, confronting, boundary setting, and prioritization. So let's move on to the second question of the day. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Cool. So this question, completely different topic now. This question is about having a manipulative or critical parent, which I know a lot of us are familiar with. So they say, my question is about my manipulative mother. She constantly puts me down and scolds me even when I'm helping her, using phrases such as, you're always very slow, etc. I feel like I'll never be good enough for her, and I don't understand why I feel this urge to be good enough in her eyes. The anxiety of her finding out small things that she will not approve of eats me up every day. It sounds like she has a lot of control over her life and watches everything, even has my email password. Oh my God. She has, this is the mother, has a history of severe depression and anxiety. and her parents were pretty much like this as well, so it's kind of being passed on down. And it seems like she's trying to prove to herself that she's better than her children. I'm constantly living with anxiety, desperate effort to please her. What do you suggest me to do? This one's real common, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Unfortunately, it's kind of endemic to certain cultures as well. I don't know which culture this person is in. One note is that she does mention here, it's a she, I believe, is about 20 years old. Mm-hmm. Mom should not have your email password at 20 years old. You're an adult, right? So this is, we're not talking about a teenager here where mom's trying to protect you against predators or something. This is definitely a situation where two adults should be treating each other as adults. Where would you want to start with this, Dan?
I want to start with some compassion first on a couple of points. One is, if you've been manipulated severely for years and years, there's no quick fix to this. And you can have other people tell you all sorts of great pieces of advice and everything, but they won't know what it feels like. You are literally brain-wired. You're conditioned to react to patterns of behavior. It's going to be a serious piece of work to break that. The other thing is, in my experience as a coach, and I'm keen to hear from you, Mike, about this as well, when it comes to boundary setting and it comes to self-respect, everyone can get really strong in every area except family. All my clients, the one area that they struggle the most is family, and particularly parents. It seems like I can help someone become super assertive and self-respecting and confident, and they go home and it all falls to pieces. And I think it's something to do with the hardwire, the trauma. When you're built from scratch by this person, it's very hard to escape the program. You know, the robot can't get away from his programmer, kind of thing. So it's amazing to me that there's this kind of time warp that exists in the family environment, where no matter what kind of work you do outside of it, you're likely to take a big step backwards once you get home for Christmas or whatever. So I just want to start with a bit of compassion. Like, yeah, this is going to be really hard to deal with, and it's really common, and everybody I know who has this struggles immensely with it, even once they become confident.
I absolutely agree that it's one of the most significant things that people struggle with, even in their 50s and 60s. If their parents are still around, they still struggle with that parent-child dynamic. But the great news is, once you figure out how to confront it, how to establish boundaries, you are free. The guys and girls that I have seen actually take that step where they needed to confront their parent relationship were absolutely transformed after that experience. Their whole world changed. Their opinion of themselves, their parents saw them as adults for the first time simply because they stood up and said, hey, that's really enough. It was amazing to see how much they changed and how much they grew after that. So on the one hand, you feel trapped and you feel a lot of pain, and it's been a terrible experience, but I want to just give you hope that on the other side of that is pretty much everything you ever wanted, both for yourself and for your relationship with your mom. Now, there's a lot of, we only control our half of relationships. That's always one of the biggest challenges here. And any situation can go in any direction. But my experience is, in general, most parents really want their kids to be happy and do well. Their own limiting beliefs get in the way hugely.
Yeah, there are some rare cases where the parent really does want their child to suffer, but most of the time, the cause of suffering, they actually believe they're helping, and they believe they're doing it right, and they have actually moderated their own parenting, so their parents were even worse, and you're getting an improved version. It's not improved all the way, but sometimes you got to give your parents, just to relieve some of the hatred you might build up towards them, you got to give them credit. Like, they're shielding you from what they had to go through. You're getting a lesser, watered down version. most of the time. Sometimes it goes the other way. I think, Mike, you kind of nailed it, which is this is confidence building mecca. Basically, if you can do it here, you start a new life. And there's kind of two options for your first step. Now, if you are confident enough to start confronting them, that's your first step. If not yet, then your first step is to get the fuck away from them so that you can build up to that real first step. The thing is, it's from what I've seen is essentially if you don't yet have the confidence to manage your half of the relationship, to start setting those boundaries, telling them off, not tolerating certain behaviors, cutting them off, so on, then basically you it's like kryptonite. When you go near them, you're going to lose all your strength and they're going to dominate. It's just a very subtle mind game pattern that you're locked into and you're not strong enough to break out of yet. And if that's you, then you need space to build up that strength somewhere else. You know, if I had to put it really practically, I'd say you need a year off from your mum and you need to go out into the world and learn how to confront and figure out who you are and what your values are and how to live by them. And then you can come back to mum and repair the relationship. But that's if you can't confront her now. You know, if you can confront her now, then it begins today. One of the key things, and Mike, you kind of inferred this, when we say that they're trying to help, one of the ways to look at this is the kids take it very personally. When your parents criticize you, you think it's very personal and it hurts you emotionally because you take it seriously. One of the ways to look at it is this is like mental illness. For a parent who loves their child, to treat them badly means there's a screw loose there. The system's not working properly. If she loves you and then she hurts you, then obviously she doesn't even know how to function properly. And that's no different to someone being paranoid, schizophrenic, or having a borderline personality disorder, which she might actually have, or being bipolar. Something's not working in the system. And one of the ways that I find that helps me deal with people who treat me very badly is to understand that they're so disordered that that's the best they can do. They are not functioning well. This isn't about me. It's them struggling to function. It's like if somebody had epilepsy and their hand flicked out and hit me in the face. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, he punched me. I'm like, no, he's having a fit. He can't control his hands. Well, you can think about it like this. They can't control their criticism. They can't control their words. They can't control how they express their love for you. It comes out as a punch or a slap, essentially. And put it simply, the easiest way for me to deal with these people is think they're actually crazy. This isn't about me at all. They're crazy. And I can't respond to crazy as if it's serious. I need to respond to crazy as crazy and deal with it as such. You know, it's very hard for people to conceptualize this with their parents because their parents have always been the authority and been right. But I'm here to tell you, you know, here's the secret. You turn 20, you're allowed to know the secret now. Most adults don't know what the fuck they're doing. Most of them they barely got their grip on life. Most people who have kids weren't in any way qualified or trained to do so, and they didn't do it particularly well. Okay. And I say most, and I mean most. I mean more than 50%. There is no licensing for having kids. There's no training. There's no qualification. And most people are bringing the trauma from their childhood completely untouched, and then they're taking that out on their kids. And here's the secret. You got one of them, you know, and you didn't do anything wrong.
And on top of that, parents are panicked about the idea that their kids may not learn from their own mistakes as parents. But the kids are going to repeat the same problems, live the same life, have the same miseries. And of course we are going to, because parents are pressing that on us again and again and again. You know, there's a fascinating bit of psychology here that I really like, known as the doorway effect. It's the concept that our brain organizes our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, even our behavior based on things like how we're feeling at a particular moment, an emotional context, or a location. And Dan, you brought this up. It just reminded me of so many coaching situations I've found myself in where someone has moved back home for whatever reason, even for a short period of time, and suddenly feels like they're a teenager again, living under their parents' rules. They feel like they can't confront or challenge anything. They feel like they can't set boundaries. They feel like they can't even ask questions. They just do what they're told and try to stay out of trouble. And this is the mindset that they experienced when they were a teenager. So walking back into that situation, it's like flicking a switch. The thing to understand here is that you can control that. If you go on an overseas experience and do some traveling, you'll be amazed at how quickly your thoughts change, your sense of freedom change, your ability to follow your values changes, even your emotional state will go through a radical change. One of the guys I'm coaching right now, he might be online now. Just met him this afternoon. He grew up in the UK and decided to travel to New Zealand specifically to get away from his family situation and simply get some perspective on his life, what he wants, where he's going, what's next, what's happening. The thing to understand is that your mom is human too, which means all of our parents also are impacted by the doorway effect. That means when you walk in the door of their house, particularly if it's the house you grew up in, they can't help but go straight back to that dynamic of, I'm the parent, here's my child, my job is to protect them from getting killed, to make sure that they behave, that they learn social rules, that they're working hard at their homework, that they're going somewhere with their lives. And they instantly feel all this stress of being a parent. That's hard for them to let go of too, as much as it is for you to let go of receiving and attaching to it. So realize that they're as much a victim of this psychological reality as you are, and creating that space is also as much a benefit for them as it is for you. Mom needs a break too, to actually say like, hey, she's off in Europe or New Zealand exploring the world, and she checks in once a week and she's still alive, and hey, my little girl's more grown up than I thought. Parents need that. And unfortunately, a lot of parents don't encourage that these days, but it's something that you can choose to do for yourself.
Absolutely. One thing I will say, when I was reading through this one, this did sound like it was more on the extreme end of the spectrum in terms of harm and emotional manipulation. It's very little information to go on, but trusting my instincts and my experience in this field, I'd say your mother has some sort of disorder. And, something in the lines of borderline or narcissistic personality or something like that. Now, it doesn't actually matter if I'm right or not, because my next piece of advice is the same either way. You have to absolutely let go of the idea of changing her. Absolutely let go of it. Nothing you do is going to change her. That's the best mindset you can have to begin with. You'll have no impact. In fact, she may even react counterproductively to any change you try to make. She may get worse as you try to get better. So let go of her treating you better, that fantasy you have in your head of her being the parent you always wanted her to be. Let it die. She may never, ever be that. And then, given what you've written, I'd say there's a very strong possibility that the way she is now is the way she's going to be for the rest of her life. So this isn't about managing her. This definitely isn't about impressing her. You'll never be good enough, because she is wired towards criticism. She's wired towards one-upmanship. You could be the best person in the world and she'll find something wrong with it. You have no chance of pleasing her, which is a relief, hopefully. You can't win. You don't need to play. It's a game. If you were going to win, you would have done it within 20 years of practice, right? If you do something for 20 years and you don't win, stop doing that thing. You suck at it, or it's not possible. So the focus has to be on you. You can't change her, but you can change you. And I love Mike's idea of not just leaving the house, leave the country. I've got to say, traveling is up there with starting a business for self-development. You know, you travel, especially if maybe you can't go on your own, because it sounds like she's really destroyed your self-confidence, but you can find, like, did that Camp America thing. There's overseas, like, there's businesses that take you overseas and organize everything for you, so you can kind of do a safe version of it. But you get around people who don't know you and have no expectations of you, and you get out of that bubble and you'll realize most people aren't like her. Most people are kind and encouraging and considerate, or at least not mean. And once you get a lot of evidence that a lot of people are like that, you won't keep seeing her as the queen of the world. You'll see her as actually a kind of exceptionally negative person. And that'll help you detach from taking this personally. Instead of trying to please her, you'll realize, no, she's essentially kind of sick. You know, she might need care and support. She may even need to be seen by professionals. But there's nothing you can do to help her. You know, you're not going to mend her broken leg. Don't try to mend her broken mind. So yeah, I've got to say, just reading this, I'm going to throw a coin in the, you know, gamble on this one. She's got something quite disordered about her, and for your mental health, you need to get away for now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And what's more, you know, truth be told, these situations generally worsen with age. If your mom has been heading down this road for some period of time in terms of her worldview, her relationship with you, her relationship with others, her overly critical and controlling nature, you know, don't expect it to improve, certainly not overnight. So the best thing you can do is, as Dan said, is take full responsibility for yourself, care for yourself, create a situation for yourself where you can thrive and grow and learn to develop self-confidence and self-responsibility and self-love. And then you actually have something to bring back to your family situation if you want, and when it's appropriate and when it's needed. At this point, your mom couldn't accept any appreciation or love from you, even if she tried. So, sounds like, you know, your course forward is pretty clearly charted for you. Is create that space and grow and learn, and then see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I would add to that, you probably are going to need professional support. Probably a expert in family crisis and issues, a therapist who can help you understand your mum. I'd suggest doing some research on borderline personality, because I'm seeing a lot of the hallmarks of that. I'm not saying you should diagnose her, but just once you understand kind of who she is, you might find it easier to break free. And, you know, the last point I make is, from experience, I know you'll be scared of her reaction to you going out on your own. You know, you just know that she's going to explode if you try to leave the nest. Given that she's got your email address, she's probably not too cool with you having freedom. Email password, I mean. So what I'd say is this. One thing to keep in mind, no matter what you do, she's going to be upset with you. So you might as well choose the option that's good for you, because you're going to get a negative reaction from her either way. You stay at home, she's going to explode at you for something else. You leave, she'll explode at you. The explosion's happening. There's no avoiding of that. You've tried for 20 years. You can't. So it doesn't make a difference what you choose in terms of what she's going to do. So you're free to choose anything that's good for you. But you're going to need probably therapy, probably medication. Yeah, I'm guessing you're kind of fucked up by this. Most people I talk to with this kind of background have a lot of trauma. And that kind of, I guess I'm trying to emphasize how serious I think this case is. This isn't like you've got a mean parent who's not good at communicating. I think you're in like what we'd probably call a toxic environment that is going to destroy you if you don't get out of there ASAP. Yeah, that's what else can I say? I mean, that's the first step. Nothing else can happen until you get out of there and get support.
And depending on your own family situation, one of the things you might consider is once you're out, talking to other family members to see where they stand and how they might be able to help. There is absolutely no doubt they've seen this situation for years. If they see it clearly and see the harm it's caused, they may be able to help or at least provide perspective and emotional support for you so that you don't feel like you've disconnected from the family and just bye and abandoned them all, which is going to be very difficult for you to do. Understanding that your mother is someone who needs help is a starting point there, and having the family's support in recognizing that and getting her the help she needs is really the only way she's going to be able to grow and benefit and become a better person.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great if you can find some people. Quite a few of my clients who have this issue, once they bring it up with other family members, they find out, oh, everybody's dealing with this. Like, nobody's talking about it. Everyone's aware of it. Other times, I want to make sure that we cover this in case it comes up. You're the only one. If your parent has narcissistic personality or is a psychopath, there's a good chance they'll choose one person to target all their misery towards, and everybody else gets nice treatment. And it creates a situation where the victim seems to be the crazy one, because everyone's like, how could you be complaining about him? He's so great, or she's just so awesome. She's so lovely. She bakes pies for the church every Sunday. Because they become obsessed about one particular target, and everybody else is manipulated to protect their domination of the target. So they create this lie world where everybody's on their side and the target looks crazy. You see child sex offenders do this a lot. They make the child look crazy because everyone in the community thinks the offender is this, high authority doctor, priest, awesome person who's nice to everyone. Can't see him as the monster. So there may be a chance that your mum has created a situation where you're the only one who sees her dark side. Given the small amount of information you've given us, we can't really tell, but it actually sounds like probably she can't help herself, so I'm guessing other people have seen this too. Doesn't really matter. If nobody believes you, you can come back and repair that and deal with that later. She will be revealed over time anyway. Narcissists, eventually their universe unravels, and everybody sees them for what they are, usually long after the damage has been done. But all that matters is you get yourself sorted. As Mike says, it's responsibility time. You need to protect you first and foremost. Anything else, like a relationship with her, is deprioritized until that shit is sorted. Absolutely.
Yeah, and one very final note is part of your progression, is part of pulling away and creating a safe space for yourself. You will probably want to create a new email account, and you will probably want to start connecting with other people in a similar situation. You can find a lot of groups online around the world, people who even travel specifically to discuss and deal with family issues. You can get a lot of support there. And most importantly, you'll see that you're not alone in this kind of problem. That's probably the biggest, most traumatic aspect of it, is when you feel trapped and, solitary. Brojo's always here for you. So definitely share your progress and new challenges that you encounter. We absolutely recognize, as we said at the beginning, that parent-child relationship is one of the most significant things in each of our lives. We spend a lot of attention on that. And it is one of the most transformative experiences. Getting that right is one of the most transformative experiences you will ever have in your life. So good luck.
Yeah, that's about it. And of course, anybody else watching this with the same issue, we're here to support you. You're going to need support. You'll feel like you're alone. You'll feel like you're crazy. You feel like you're the only one, but you're actually surrounded by tons of people secretly harboring the same issue. And once you people get talking to each other and you start to see you've got a lot of things in common, you start to see, it's funny, part of responsibility is recognizing when you are a victim of something. It's recognizing, hey, I'm not the bad person in this scenario. I'm not the one who's done this. It's been done to me. But now that I know that, I have to do something about it. But it really helps to just go, you know what, I'm not the bad kid. I'm not the poor performer. I've got, an unfit parent. And that's just bad luck. It's just bad luck. You don't get to choose your parents. You got born into it. But you're 20. You've just begun life, essentially. It can be turned around here. And even if you're watching this and you're 60, your last 25 years can still be good. You can still heal this. I think the most important point was the one you made, Mike, is you've seen when people deal with this one, their life transforms. There's really nothing more important to deal with if you have disharmony with your parents, because it's at the core of everything. They were there from the beginning. They molded you. They influenced the very formation of your brain. They are the slave driver. If you can run away and free yourself from that slavery, then you're free forever.
It's rather like a superhero sorting out your origin story. This is your beginning here.
Yeah. This is it. Kryptonite. I don't know. It's all the shit.